Um, still doing the sides and gluing the curfling on round the edge, but I can only do one side of the body at a time. So I've moved that. Out the way, and started thinking about the neck. What I've done is I bought this plan of an F5 mandolin. Um, it's not very good as a plan. There's not much in the way of dimensions on it. Actually, you have to take measure the drawing itself. So, but it serves its purpose. I mean, it's got details of the neck down here, a couple of cross sections to give me some dimensions, but it's pretty shabbily drawn, but gives me a good enough idea. So my thoughts basically are, I previously said I want to build it to an F5 mandolin scale length, and basically use the dimensions for the neck from this. So we'll get a bit of a wood that could be suitable for the neck, and we'll go from there. I've actually done a bit more to the drawing, as well as the plan view. Now I've added a section through the centre. It's quite difficult to ascertain all the details. From this picture of the back of the mandolin, it looks, I can't really see whether the end of the neck is, if you like, this round bit on here belongs to the neck or belongs to the body. It's very difficult to see how it all goes together, but anyway, I think what I've done is I've drawn the neck here, using the F5 mandolin dimensions, and I think I'll just have to jump in and basically make it from that, and we'll go from there and find out how things fit together. I don't think it's something that I can work out particularly easily. So the nice thing about making a musical instrument that's actually a different size that you normally do is you get to use the odd bits of wood you've got lying around. So we've got a bit of mahogany here. The top of it is wide enough. This face of it is wide enough for the fretboard. So I can use this. This is the side elevation, so I can actually do the headstock without having to scarf in a joint or anything, which is very nice. And yeah, we'll get on and start cutting stuff out. A bit more. that kind of ensures we've got a nice flat flat joint for the fingerboard, so we can get marking everything from here now. Well, we got a very approximate neck profile marked out on there, which is gives me plenty of room for adjustment. First thing we really need to do is to do the truss rod slot while the wood is nice and square. So we'll get on and set up to do that. Okay, let me introduce you to my router table. Well, it's not a commercial one, it's a bench, basically a flat bench I've drilled a hole in. Here's my router down here. Yeah, it's a very handy thing. I find it slightly more worrying to use than a router held in your hand kind of thing, because mainly the cutter's coming out of here, so seems a little bit, yeah, I'll just be a bit cautious with it. So what we're going to do now is cut the truss rod slot for this little mandolin neck, and what I'm going to use is, I do really like these cutters, these spiral cutters. They're very nice to use, but it's a 3/16 cutter to do the slot down the center there. This is a 1/2 inch router, and what I've got is a extension, professionally manufactured extension piece kind of thing that will take a 1/4 inch router. So that goes in there, and then we can there's a little Allen key on the side, just do that up. That's held firmly in there, and then the whole thing goes in the router, and I haven't got the proper stuff to and then we can wind the router down. It's all a bit slow, this, I must admit. If I probably got a professional proper router table, it'd be a lot more convenient, but I haven't, so that's that. I'll get back to you when we're ready. Well, we've got the cutter in now, and I've got a fence that I've set to the right spacing from the cutter, so I can now cut the truss rod slot down here, just simply following the fence like that. One of the reasons why I wanted to use the router table for this is that I want the truss rod slot cut at a slope. I just like that, they seem to work slightly better. So the easy way to do that is I've just glued this 3mm bit of scrap wood on the end, so it'll now cut deeper at this end than that end, so I can just basically cut a varying depth slot now. The only thing you've got to be careful of is I don't want to go right to the end and basically drop down the cutter hole, but I only need to cut a slot from here to here. Basically that's the length of the, you know, plenty length for the truss rod slot. So let's get going. I've just cut a little test groove in there in the waste end of the wood, and can see that it's not quite in the center, but it's easy, it's good enough for me. This piece is wider than it needs to be for the neck, so I've got plenty of room to thin things down, so I'm not gonna change my fence just for the sake of getting it in the middle when it doesn't need to be. So we'll carry on now. So we've now cut a nice slot for the truss rod in there. This will be the truss rod I'm using. It's old style Gibson truss rod. This actually came out of a guitar and has got a bit of a naff threaded end on it, but I can easily chop it off and use it for this. So this now fits absolutely perfectly in there. I've done the slot about 15 millimeters deep, and so the truss rod will be fitted in, and then a filler rod put over the top of it, which will be fine. So I think that's all good, and nice straight tapered slot using the good old router table. Brilliant. So here we go. Here's the very rough blank sawn out for the neck. I've been umming and ahhing a bit about this, but I think, like I say, the best approach I can do is cut it very generous, and then as we start getting a bit more clue on where everything goes on the instrument, then I can tidy things up. But this is fine for now, and so start on the neck. Here's using my planer now, in its planing mode rather than thicknessing mode. We've got the neck blank. It's a square bit of wood. Yesterday we planed that thickness, that square. So basically what I want to do now is do the headstock face. Here's the position of the top nut here, and I've got plenty of wood to thin down from there, so I want to bring this down and give me a nice right angle off there. Actually, I'm going to leave a little bit of room, stop short of that line, so I've got a nice landing for the nut to be glued onto. And so this has been set perfectly at 90 degrees, so I'm just going to hold the edge of the neck to the fence 90 degrees, so that should give us a good angle. Keep a bit of safety here as well. Again, I feel this is very much the same as using a router table. I just don't like cutters being next to my fingers, so I'm taking precautions. Please, seriously, like, if you get this on one of your fingers, you'll never play a musical instrument again, and routers are the same. Cover the cutter up. And then if anybody accidentally switches it on, no problem, but perfect job, eh? So we've got the top nut line, you can just see here, and then we've got a little landing for the nut there, so I think that will be absolutely fine. Yep, all good. And on this surface here, I'll be veneering the surface, because the width of the width of the headstock is blooming massive. It's that big flowery shaped leaf thing. So obviously I don't want to go wasting a massive chunk of wood just to get that off in one piece. And I've got a lovely piece of, I think it's burr walnut veneer I can put over there, which looks a little bit like the original. So now what we'll get on, the next thing I like to do with the neck is actually get the headstock down to the right thickness and finish that off. So I'll set up for that and then come back. Hi there. Right. No clue to what I'm doing here, I guess, but let me just start off by introducing some bits. This is called a safe T planer. I think they're available from Stumac. I've actually never seen them for sale in the UK, but what you basically do is you put it in your drill press. Turn it on, and you can actually pass a piece of wood underneath it, and it takes a little slither off. It's quite useful. I like it. So what I'm doing here is I'm going to thickness the headstock down. I like my headstocks to be about 13 mil at one end without the veneer on, so you're about 13.5 mil, something like that. But I do like to have a taper in the headstock. I just think it looks a bit nicer. So same trick as we did with routing the truss rock groove yesterday. I've glued just about 1 millimetre or so veneer on the end here. So what I'm going to do now is put this on here and start planing the headstock thickness down. You'll see how it goes. It's a bit difficult to explain. So first of all, we bring this down to somewhere around where we want it, thickness wise. That was intelligent. It's the wrong one I've done up. So now we want to pass this underneath here. We're going to take much too much off there, so this has got to rise up. So let's just push it through with that thickness and give us a start. Now lock the thing. You can lock the movement of the drill press. And let's see how we start with that. Just move this up about 0.5 millimeter. Just take your time. And what this guarantees is that you're going to get the front face and the back face absolutely square to one another, parallel to one another. So there we go, a nice tapered, slightly tapered headstock. Probably goes to, we've got 14 millimeters at that end and just over 15 at the other end. You know what, I'm going to take it down slightly more because we've got the veneer to go on top. Probably just another finishing cut. Yeah, I'm really happy with that now. Let's just try and knock that bit off. And nicely tapered, perfectly square, like really good tool for the job. And yep, so let's, I think next job is probably like fitting the truss rod in. And yeah, we'll get on with that. Oh, hi there again. Basically for the truss rod, I've actually got what is it's either one that I made for a guitar unsuccessfully a little while ago. The threads on this end, I mean, it was obviously much longer, weren't very good at all. So it's just basically a vintage style truss rod, very much like Fender and Gibson used back in the day. You want the truss rod really to run from the neck heel to obviously past the top nut. So we've got it, you know, I know enough about the layout of the neck to be able to put the truss rod in now. Basically what we'll do next is we'll put a thread on the end of that for a typical brass Gibson nut. Thread cutting is no real black art. For Gibsons and Fender truss rods, there's the thread they use is 1132, which is a UNF thread, but both Gibson and Fender use the same thread, so there's no problem. And basically what you want to do is, this is the end of the truss rod here, just grind a very small chamfer or file a very small chamfer on the end, and then I haven't got a proper thread die holding tool, but G-clamp will do like this, no problem. Press it on the end. It's sometimes a bit, there's a more of a tapered end on one side of the dies, so use that. Takes a bit to get going, but press down, slowly turn. Once you get going, it's fine. And when you do get started, turn it about half a turn, back it off a little bit, and you'll feel the shavings break off. So we've got a really nice thread now cut on there, just to show you. I mean, this is a vintage style Fender nut. Well, not vintage, but the same thread as a Gibson, and nice and solid on there. There's no wobble or anything, so we're really good with that. And like I say, I'll be using like the typical brass Gibson nut. I think it's nice to use the brass nut because brass is softer than steel, and you know, if you are gonna chew it up when it's on the instrument, you've got more chance of chewing up the nut, which you can much easier replace than the truss rod, obviously. So there we go. Now we've got the neck. I know where I want the anchor point of the truss rod to be. Got me 3/8 drill in there, so I'm just going to drill down. I'm not going to measure this. I mean, you've got the bottom of the slot in here, so I want the anchor point to go about 1/4 of an inch below there. That will be good.
think that should be good. Let's just give it a quick try in there. Well, actually what I'll do is I'll put it in the other way, so I've got something to hang on to get it out. Let's just give that a bit of a clean up. Yeah, I think that's plenty deep enough, and that should be good. Now I've got the problem of getting it out, but we'll do that so we can now do the other end up by the truss rod. Here we are now. We can do the truss rod nut end. I actually prefer to do this with a Dremel, just with a drum sander on it. I mean, you can fiddle around with chisels and whatnot if you want, but I actually just prefer the Dremel. I think it just makes it a simpler job. And we can just tidy up the end with a chisel. This extension to the truss rod slot, I mean, I just ran it straight through the on the router table. I'm not worried about that. I mean, I'll just fill that in with some of the remaining wood from the filler strip that goes over the top of the truss rod. And as I said earlier, this is going to be veneered anyway, so that's not a problem at all. So let's get the truss rod in. Okay, we're back with the neck. You can see that I've actually fitted the truss rod in there now, and I've put a Gibson style brass nut on the end, and I've also made a little D-shaped washer there that's typical of a Gibson style. I like to make my own little washers like that rather than just use a round one. I make them a little bit thicker so they don't distort, and it's probably a bit of an overkill, but yeah, it's a bit of a vintage feature anyway. I really wouldn't recommend bothering with a truss rod like this in anything but a vintage build where you actually want vintage. I think they're a hell of a lot of work to install for what they are, and I mean, you've got to cut a channel. Some of them are curved, and then you've got to you've got to cut a load of material wood out of here to accommodate a spanner on the end of it or whatever, or a socket or something, exactly where you want all the strength to be. I really just think they're a waste of time, and they'll only curve the neck against the pull of the strings. They'll never go the other way. I'll just get a double biflex truss rod. Now this is a modern style truss rod, called a biflex truss rod, and basically if you do the nut up one way on the end, you can see that it curves in that direction. If you do it up the other way, it curves in that direction, so you can actually bend the neck two ways. So much better, and that's all you have to do to fit it is 6mm router cutter and cut it to that depth there, and job's done. You fit it in, and the nice thing is it'll go in the neck just there. You don't have to gouge out a bloody great axis thing to get a bolt in. Don't let anybody ever tell you that a vintage truss rod is the way to go. No, if there's no consideration to vintage-ness, if you like, for God's sake, use one of these. Just so much simpler, less work to put one in, and then you've got the ultimate in adjustment as well. So much better. So anyway, we got this stupid version of a truss rod in there. I've made this filler strip now. I've got the binder gluing this all on in and everything. I'll do this in 3 bits. One just behind the truss rod, one over the top of the truss rod, and I'll just fill this little thing in here as well. So yeah, let's get weaving. Just whiz over to my bandsaw and cut this out. One thing that I've done over the top with the truss rod as well is I've just wiped a little bit of cooking oil over it, which will stop the glue sticking to the truss rod. You don't want the glue to stick to the truss rod, otherwise it won't work properly. Yeah, so just be careful as well. What I'll do is I'll just put the glue on the filler strip, so as it squashes in, it won't it won't actually stick to the truss rod. So So this bit of filler rod goes from the nut end of the anchor point to the washer on there. Looking good. A bit of glue. I don't really want to put glue in the slot because I'll just end up pushing it down on the truss rod. So just a little. Cut a tiny little bit out and stuff it in there. Right, so I think we've got everything glued in now, and once that's dried we can just trim it all back, and yeah, we've made a start on the neck, got quite a lot done really, so that's good.